Imagine a time of relentless chaos, where warriors roamed the land, and honor was earned by the edge of a sword. This was 17th century Japan, a world of samurai, duels, and a legendary swordsman named Miyamoto Musashi. Musashi wasn't just any samurai. He was the samurai. A ronin, a masterless warrior, who wandered from town to town, honing his skills in over 60 duels. But after a lifetime of battles, something changed. Musashi, the man who had never been defeated, began to see beyond the clash of swords and sought a different kind of victory. And so, Musashi laid down his sword and picked up a brush. What he wrote became known as the Dokkodo, the way of walking alone. A set of 21 principles, not for winning battles, but for mastering life itself. Before we dive into these timeless principles, let's set the stage. Picture this: Musashi, a lone warrior in a world of constant turmoil, trying to find peace in the midst of chaos. He wasn't just tired of violence. He was searching for something deeper, a way to live that wasn't dictated by the sword. Musashi's journey wasn't just across Japan. It was a journey inward. He was no longer chasing glory or power. He was chasing something far more elusive: inner peace. And that's where the Dokkodo comes in. This wasn't just a guide for samurai. It was Musashi's blueprint for living a life of purpose, discipline, and freedom from worldly attachments. The Dokkodo is divided into 21 principles, each one offering a unique perspective on how to navigate life. Musashi wrote it for himself, but its wisdom resonates far beyond the battlefield. Whether you're a warrior or a dreamer, these principles have something to teach us all. Self-discipline, mindfulness, detachment. These are the pillars of Musashi's philosophy. But they aren't just abstract ideas. They're practical, powerful tools for anyone looking to find balance in the chaos of modern life. First, let's dive into the core themes of the Dokkodo, Musashi's guiding philosophy: self-discipline. Musashi was convinced that self-discipline is the foundation of a fulfilling life. Without it, we're at the mercy of our emotions and impulses, leading us astray and making it harder to stay on course. By honing self-discipline, we can focus on what truly matters, make decisions that align with our values, and carve out a path that leads to genuine fulfillment. Mindfulness. The second theme is mindfulness, being fully present in the moment. Musashi saw this as essential to a meaningful life. When we're mindful, we're not just going through the motions. We're savoring the beauty in everyday moments, finding joy in the simple things. It also gives us clarity, allowing us to understand our thoughts and emotions better so we can respond with intention rather than reacting impulsively. Detachment. Lastly, Musashi emphasized the importance of detachment. He believed that clinging to material possessions or external circumstances only leads to suffering. By releasing our attachments, we free ourselves from unnecessary burdens, finding peace within ourselves and living more fully. This principle is captured perfectly in his advice: accept everything just the way it is. Let's look deeply into the first principle of the Dokkodo and see what it's all about. Principle number 1. Accept everything just the way it is. Imagine this. You're trying to change things that are out of your control, and it's just driving you nuts. Musashi's first principle is like a big, calming breath in that chaos. It's all about accepting reality as it is, not how we wish it would be. This mindset shift helps us dodge a lot of frustration and disappointment. By embracing what's happening right now, instead of trying to mold reality to fit our expectations, we actually open ourselves up to new opportunities. It's like seeing the hidden possibilities in every situation, rather than just focusing on the problems. Acceptance isn't about giving up or being passive. It's about recognizing that while we can't control everything, we can control our response. It means looking at life with a clear mind and heart, letting go of preconceived notions, and seeing things as they are. In a nutshell, acceptance is about surrendering the illusion of control and finding harmony with the world as it is, not as we wish it would be. This simple shift in perspective can transform our relationship with life, allowing us to experience more joy and less stress, no matter what comes our way. Principle number 2. Do not seek pleasure for its own sake. We all love a good meal, a fun night out, or the company of friends. But Musashi warns us not to let these pleasures take over our lives. The second principle is a reminder that while enjoying life's pleasures is important, they shouldn't be our main focus. When we become too obsessed with chasing pleasure, we can lose sight of our goals and values. Seeking pleasure is a natural part of being human, but it can lead us down a slippery slope. We might find ourselves constantly craving more, never fully satisfied, and trapped in a cycle of addiction. Musashi encourages us to approach pleasure with moderation and discernment. True happiness, he says, comes from within, not from external sources. Principle number 3. Do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. Musashi is advising to be cautious about making decisions based solely on our emotions or fleeting impulses. Emotions can be powerful, but they're also temporary and can cloud our judgment if we allow them to take the lead. When we make decisions in the heat of the moment, whether out of anger, excitement, or fear, we risk acting without fully understanding the situation or considering the long-term consequences. These snap decisions can lead to regret and unintended outcomes. Emotions are impermanent and subject to change. When we practice this kind of emotional detachment, we create a stable inner foundation that is less affected by the ups and downs of life. It's important to note that Musashi is not advocating for indifference or numbness. This principle is about cultivating emotional intelligence, learning to recognize and understand our emotions, but not allowing them to dominate our decisions. By doing so, we can navigate life's challenges with wisdom and calm, making choices that truly reflect our values and long-term goals. Principle number 4. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. This principle urges us to embrace humility and not become overly attached to our own importance. By shifting our focus to the world around us, we can better appreciate its beauty and complexity, which deepens our connection to others and the forces that shape our lives. Thinking lightly of ourselves helps us shed the burden of ego, while thinking deeply of the world fosters empathy and a broader perspective. This isn't about devaluing our self-worth, but about approaching life with curiosity and wonder, acknowledging the vastness of the universe. By doing so, we cultivate humility, gratitude, and a deeper connection with the world and those around us. Principle number 5. Be detached from desire your whole life long. This principle teaches the importance of letting go of attachments to material possessions, power, and other external factors. By releasing these attachments, we can find inner peace and live a more fulfilling life, allowing us to focus on what truly matters: our relationships, passions, and personal growth. Musashi encourages cultivating non-attachment to our desires and cravings, freeing us from the cycle of constant yearning and the suffering it can bring. By embracing detachment, we learn to find joy and satisfaction in the present moment, rather than chasing external desires. This principle doesn't mean neglecting our goals or dreams. Instead, it urges us to approach them with a sense of detachment, understanding that desires are temporary and subject to change. By doing so, we can maintain inner peace and contentment, even when life doesn't go as planned. Principle number 6. Do not regret what you have done. This principle teaches us that dwelling on past mistakes only traps us in a cycle of regret, preventing us from moving forward. Regret can consume our energy, cloud our judgment, and limit our potential by keeping us focused on what we cannot change. Instead, we should view our past actions with acceptance and forgiveness, recognizing that every experience, whether good or bad, has shaped who we are today. Rather than letting regret dominate our thoughts, we should focus on the lessons learned from our past and use them to guide our future decisions. This approach allows us to let go of the emotional weight of regret, freeing us to live fully in the present. By practicing self-forgiveness and detachment, we can cultivate inner peace and clarity, enabling us to move forward with greater wisdom and purpose. Ultimately, this principle encourages us to embrace our imperfections, learn from our experiences, and reclaim our power to shape the future, unburdened by the mistakes of the past. Principle number 7. Never, ever be jealous. Jealousy is a powerful emotion that can distort our perception and harm our relationships. It stems from insecurity and comparison, leading us to feel envious of others' successes or possessions. When we allow jealousy to take hold, it erodes our self-worth and creates barriers between us and others, turning potential allies into rivals. This principle urges us to recognize the unique paths that everyone is on and to cultivate equanimity, a calm, balanced mindset that isn't shaken by the achievements of others. Detachment, in this context, means understanding that our happiness and value aren't dependent on what others have or do. By embracing this principle, we shift our focus from comparison to personal growth. We learn to celebrate others' successes without feeling threatened, and to approach our relationships with generosity and non-attachment. This not only frees us from the burden of envy, but also allows us to form deeper, more meaningful connections. Ultimately, never ever be jealous encourages us to focus on our own journey, acknowledging that everyone's path is different. By letting go of jealousy, we find greater peace and fulfillment, allowing us to appreciate the beauty of our own lives without diminishing the joy of others. Principle number 8. Never let yourself be saddened by a separation. This principle addresses the inevitable experience of separation and loss in our lives. Whether it's the end of a relationship, the death of a loved one, or any significant life change, separation is natural but challenging. It's normal to feel grief and sorrow, but when these emotions dominate our lives, they can become sources of prolonged suffering. The principle encourages us to recognize the impermanence of all things, people, situations, and even emotions. By accepting that everything is temporary, we can approach separations with a sense of detachment. This doesn't mean avoiding emotions or relationships. It means fully embracing the present while understanding that clinging to what must eventually change only prolongs our pain. Detachment allows us to care deeply without being consumed by loss. It teaches us to process our grief with awareness, knowing that emotions will pass, and to move forward without being weighed down by sorrow. This principle also reminds us not to judge ourselves harshly for feeling deeply, but to accept our emotions as part of the human experience. By embracing the transient nature of life, we can find inner peace and live more fully in the moment, appreciating what we have without being overshadowed by the fear of losing it. Ultimately, this principle guides us to accept change as a natural part of life, and to move forward with clarity and purpose. Principle number 9. Resentment and complaint are appropriate, neither for oneself nor others. This principle highlights the destructive nature of resentment and chronic complaining. Resentment often arises from past hurts or unmet expectations, while complaints stem from dissatisfaction with our circumstances. When we let these emotions dominate, they can distort our perspective, erode our inner peace, and damage our relationships. Rather than dwelling on negativity, this principle encourages us to focus on finding constructive solutions to our problems. By practicing detachment, we can acknowledge our emotions without letting them control us, recognizing that anger and frustration are temporary and do not define us. Importantly, this principle doesn't advocate ignoring legitimate grievances or avoiding necessary boundaries. Instead, it suggests approaching these situations with calm and purpose, free from the grip of resentment. By doing so, we free ourselves from the burden of negativity, allowing us to live more fully in the present, with greater clarity and peace. Ultimately, this principle guides us toward a mindset of acceptance and constructive action, enabling us to navigate challenges with resilience and wisdom, while fostering more positive connections with ourselves and others. Principle number 10. Do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. This principle advises us to maintain a sense of detachment in our relationships, rather than becoming overwhelmed by our emotions. Lust and love, while powerful, can cloud our judgment and lead us to make decisions that aren't in our best interest. By practicing detachment, we can avoid becoming overly dependent on others and instead focus on cultivating self-reliance and independence. Understanding that emotions like lust and love are temporary and ever-changing helps us approach relationships with a clearer mind. This detachment allows us to experience attraction and connection without being controlled by them, freeing us from the weight of emotional entanglement. By not clinging to the actions or decisions of others, we can maintain inner peace and contentment, fostering deeper and more meaningful relationships, rooted in mutual respect and understanding. Principle number 11. In all things, have no preferences. This principle teaches us that our preferences often stem from personal biases and limitations, which can narrow our perspective and limit our experiences. By remaining open-minded and flexible, we can better appreciate the diversity of the world and find joy in the unexpected and unfamiliar. While preferences are a natural part of being human, they can also lead to frustration and suffering when we become too attached to them. This principle encourages us to detach from rigid preferences, understanding that everything is impermanent and subject to change. By doing so, we free ourselves from the constraints of our likes and dislikes and can fully engage with the present moment. However, this principle doesn't suggest abandoning our values or avoiding making choices. Instead, it invites us to approach life with non-attachment and an open heart, recognizing that there's no single right way to live. By letting go of fixed preferences, we cultivate inner peace, acceptance, and the clarity needed to navigate life with purpose and flexibility. Principle number 12. Be indifferent to where you live. This principle invites us to develop a sense of inner peace and contentment that isn't dependent on our external circumstances. By detaching ourselves from our physical surroundings, we gain greater freedom and flexibility in our lives, allowing us to focus more on our inner growth and the cultivation of our character. While our living situation can greatly influence our well-being and happiness, This principle encourages us to approach it with detachment and non-attachment. It reminds us that true inner peace comes from within, not from external conditions. This doesn't mean we should ignore the importance of creating a safe and comfortable environment, but rather that we should view our living situation with a sense of impermanence, understanding that it can change. By embracing this perspective, we can cultivate a deeper sense of inner peace and contentment, directing our energy toward what truly matters in life. Principle number 13. Do not pursue the taste of good food. While food is a vital and natural part of life, it can also become a source of attachment and even suffering. This principle encourages us to approach our relationship with food with detachment, understanding that the pleasure derived from good food is temporary and ever-changing. By adopting this mindset, we can liberate ourselves from the weight of attachment to food and fully embrace the present moment. This principle doesn't suggest that we should neglect the importance of nourishing our bodies or deny ourselves the enjoyment of good food. Instead, it invites us to view food as a means to sustain life, rather than as an end in itself. By fostering a balanced and non-judgmental approach to food, we can cultivate greater inner peace and contentment, leading to a healthier relationship with what we eat. Principle 14. Let go of possessions you no longer need. Musashi believed in living simply, free from the burden of unnecessary possessions. He viewed luxury and sentimental items as distractions from a purposeful life. The message is straightforward. Keep what's useful and let go of the rest. For instance, if you have clothes you never wear, Musashi would suggest donating or discarding them, keeping only what you truly need. The same applies to sentimental items. If they no longer serve a purpose, it's time to let them go. In his final days, Musashi gave away his possessions, recognizing that holding on to things ties you to the past. This principle encourages us to clear out what no longer serves us, making room for growth, experiences, and meaningful relationships. The wisdom is simple. Travel light in life, both physically and emotionally, so you can focus on what truly matters. Principle number 15. Do not act following common customs. Social norms and customs can often dictate how we live our lives and approach our experiences, but they can also be a source of constraint and limitation. This principle encourages us to approach our experiences with a sense of detachment and non-attachment, recognizing that there is no inherent right or wrong way to live our lives. By doing so, we free ourselves from the burden of societal expectations and allow ourselves to fully embrace the present moment. This principle does not encourage us to neglect the importance of community or to abandon our values and beliefs. It encourages us to approach our experiences with a sense of detachment and non-judgment, recognizing that we have the power to make our own choices and live our lives in a way that aligns with our true selves. By doing so, we can cultivate a greater sense of inner peace and contentment, and move forward with greater clarity and purpose. Principle number 16. Do not be jealous or envious. Jealousy and envy often arise when we compare ourselves to others, leading to feelings of inadequacy and discontent. This principle urges us to adopt a mindset of detachment, recognizing that another person's success or happiness doesn't diminish our own value or potential. By letting go of these negative emotions, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of comparison. This allows us to focus on our own journey and appreciate the present moment without being weighed down by feelings of envy. This principle doesn't suggest avoiding healthy competition or giving up on our goals. Instead, it encourages us to pursue our ambitions with clarity, free from the distractions of jealousy. By defining success according to our own values and progress, we can maintain a sense of inner peace and foster more positive, balanced relationships with others. Ultimately, this approach leads to greater contentment and helps us to appreciate our own path, rather than constantly measuring ourselves against others. Principle number 17. Do not hold on to anger or resentment. Anger and resentment are natural human emotions that can feel intense and consuming, yet they often lead to significant suffering and inner turmoil. This principle teaches us to approach these emotions with detachment, recognizing that they are temporary and ever-changing. By doing so, we can liberate ourselves from the heavy burden of negative feelings, allowing us to be more present and at peace in our daily lives. This principle doesn't suggest that we should ignore or suppress our emotions, nor does it imply abandoning our sense of justice or fairness. Acknowledging and processing emotions is crucial for our mental and emotional well-being. However, the key lies in how we engage with these emotions. Instead of letting anger and resentment control us, we are encouraged to observe them without judgment, understanding that we have the power to choose our responses to difficult situations. Ultimately, this principle guides us toward cultivating a greater sense of inner peace and emotional balance. By letting go of anger and resentment, we create space for more positive emotions and a deeper understanding of ourselves and others. This not only improves our personal well-being, but also enhances our relationships and overall quality of life. Principle number 18. Do not place yourself above others. The human ego has a tendency to create a sense of superiority, making us believe we are somehow better than others. This principle challenges us to approach life with humility, recognizing that all beings are equal and deserving of respect and compassion. By embracing this mindset, we can liberate ourselves from the constraints of ego, which often distorts our interactions and perceptions. This principle doesn't suggest that we should neglect self-respect or lose our sense of individuality. Instead, it calls for a balanced approach where we maintain our personal dignity, while understanding that everyone we encounter has their own intrinsic value. Recognizing our interconnectedness, we see that our well-being is tied to how we treat others. Approaching relationships with humility means setting aside judgment and superiority, allowing us to engage with others more openly and sincerely. This shift in perspective fosters deeper connections and a more profound sense of empathy, enabling us to navigate our experiences with greater wisdom and compassion. By not placing ourselves above others, we create a foundation for healthier, more balanced relationships. This approach also cultivates inner peace, as we are no longer driven by the need to assert dominance or validate our worth through comparison. Instead, we find contentment in mutual respect and the understanding that we are all part of a larger whole. Principle number 19. Do not be attached to your position. In modern society, many of us derive our identity and self-worth from our job titles, social status, or roles within a community. While these external markers can provide a sense of purpose and direction, they can also become sources of suffering when we overly attach our sense of self to them. This principle encourages us to view our positions with detachment, understanding that they do not define our intrinsic worth or happiness. When we become too attached to our roles, we risk tying our self-esteem to something that is inherently unstable and subject to change. Whether it's a career, a title, or a social status, these external identities can shift or be lost, leaving us feeling adrift if we've built our sense of self around them. By practicing detachment, we can navigate these changes without losing our sense of identity or well-being. Approaching life with this perspective allows us to engage in our work and roles with greater freedom and creativity. We're no longer constrained by the fear of losing our status or the need to constantly prove ourselves. Instead, we can focus on the value we bring to each moment, recognizing that our contributions are more meaningful than the titles we hold. Principle number 20. Do not be preoccupied with living a long life. Many of us are deeply afraid of death, often clinging to life as if it's the most important thing. This principle challenges us to accept our mortality with a sense of peace and non-attachment, understanding that death is an inevitable part of being human. By accepting this, we can free ourselves from the constant anxiety of trying to prolong life at all costs. This principle doesn't suggest that we should neglect our health or disregard the importance of self-preservation. Taking care of our well-being is essential, but it's equally important to recognize that our time here is limited and precious. Instead of being consumed by the fear of death or the desire to live as long as possible, we are encouraged to live each moment fully and mindfully. By embracing our mortality with acceptance, we can cultivate a deeper sense of inner peace and contentment. This perspective allows us to focus on what truly matters, living with purpose, building meaningful relationships, and experiencing life to its fullest. When we let go of the obsession with longevity, we can approach life with a balanced mindset, appreciating the present moment and the time we have, however long it may be. In essence, this principle teaches us to live wisely and intentionally, knowing that the quality of our life is more important than its length. It's about finding peace in the natural cycle of life and death, and in doing so, living a life that is rich in meaning, connection, and joy. Principle number 21. Do not stray from the path. The final principle of the Dokkodo is simple yet profound. Stay true to your path. This principle urges us to remain committed to our values and principles, resisting the distractions and temptations that can divert us from our goals. In many ways, this principle encapsulates the essence of all the preceding ones. By fostering detachment, self-awareness, and inner peace, we can maintain focus and clarity, even when faced with challenges. Staying on our path is not always easy. Life is full of obstacles and temptations that can test our determination and lead us off course. However, by embracing the principles of the Dokkodo and committing to our core values, we strengthen our resolve and enhance our ability to navigate life's complexities. This principle is about more than just perseverance. It's about aligning our actions with our true purpose. By doing so, we can achieve the success and fulfillment we seek, living a life that is both meaningful and true to who we are. The Dokkodo, or the way of walking alone, provides a powerful and enduring guide for living a meaningful and fulfilling life. Though originally crafted for the samurai, its principles resonate with people from all backgrounds. The Dokkodo encourages us to live with detachment and non-attachment, understanding that the pursuit of external success often distracts us from true fulfillment. By fostering inner peace and contentment, we can navigate our relationships and experiences with balance, finding real satisfaction in the present moment. Following the Dokkodo is not easy. It demands self-discipline and deep introspection. However, by embracing these principles and aligning our lives with them, we can realize our full potential and lead lives filled with purpose and meaning. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, Remember to subscribe for more mindfulness content, like the video, and share it with others who may need a moment of introspection and calm. Feel free to leave a comment about your experience or any insights you discovered today. Until next time, stay mindful, stay grounded, and find your greatness.